Good morning. I hope everybody has had a wonderful day so far. We're going to get started on a new unit since you all did a wonderful job on learning how to talk and compare big numbers that have hundreds, tens, and ones. So we're going to continue our work on addition and subtraction to talk about the numbers of the animals around us in different environments. And we're going to focus on how people affect these animals. So let's play a video to get us to start thinking about the animals that we might encounter or that we might see and the different things that are happening to them. They're going to use the word endangered a lot in this video. Endangered means when there is a very small number of a certain type of animal and that eventually or soon that animal might disappear completely because that number is getting smaller and smaller.
Danger Dolan. From strawberry tigers to hairy-nosed marsupials, we count down 15 of the rarest, near-extinct animals ever to walk the earth. Number 15. The Javan rhino, also known as the small-horned rhino. It used to be found all over the islands of Java, Sumatra, parts of India, and China. Today, though, it's critically endangered, mainly due to poaching for its tiny horn used in Chinese medicine.
Poaching means when people kill an animal so that they can use a part of an animal. For this rhino, people want to have the horn because they use it for medicine, but for other animals, they might use their fur or their teeth.
The Southeast Asian wars also obliterated most of its habitat, so now Javan rhino numbers barely exceed 40. Number 14. The Amur leopard. These are found in the Primorye regions of southeast Russia. This is the only leopard subspecies adapted to a cold, snowy climate, and according to a 2008 study, there are only 15 adults left in the wild. The reason? Poaching, encroaching civilizations, new roads, destruction of forests, and climate change. Number 13. Tarsiers. These are found on the islands of Southeast Asia, which includes Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. But since they've become critically endangered, you're only going to find them in Borneo now. The reason they're so rare and cherished is that these tarsiers are the only primates alive who are 100% carnivorous. They mostly go after insects, but they've also been known to devour birds, bats, lizards, and snakes. Number 12. The northern hairy-nosed wombat. This is one of 3 species of wombat in existence. It used to live all over New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland in Australia. But in the last 100 years, the population has been declining quite harshly. The reason? It has to fight for its food against popular domestic animals like cow and sheep. So now just over 100 of these wombats are left. Number 11. The western lowland gorilla. These live in Central Africa and also a wide area of the Congo jungles. These gorillas show the intelligence of a young child. They fashion tools to dig holes, they can learn sign language up to 1,000 signs, and we haven't yet discovered the full extent of their mental capacity. They endured deforestation, farming, grazing, and expanding human settlements, but it was the Ebola virus in Africa that accounts for 90% of this species' extinction, only leaving just over 500 left in captivity.
So deforestation is when people cut down the trees that animals need to live in, and the Ebola virus was a sickness. So sometimes a disease or a sickness can make an animal population, the number of animals, get very small.
10. The okapi. This one looks like a strange zebra offshoot, but in reality it's a distant relative of the giraffe, a very distant relative. It was first discovered in ancient Egypt, the legend of an African unicorn, and it's considered a living fossil since it has no close living relatives, only those species long dead. Currently, there are between 10 and 20,000 okapi alive today. Number 9. The Iberian lynx. This is a carnivorous mammal native to the Iberian Peninsula, southeastern Europe. Its numbers only total around 100, with the primary cause poaching of its main prey, the European rabbit, and the lynx is physically unable to alter its diet.
So prey is the type of food or animal that another animal eats. So even if people don't hunt and kill this lynx, if they hunt and kill the food that this lynx needs to eat, then that hurts the population of lynx and would make that number get smaller as well. So we're going to stop right there, and you have learned a couple reasons why animal populations might get smaller, and you have seen some really beautiful animals that are in danger of disappearing or going away from our planet. So would any students like to share thoughts? So thank you for sharing your thoughts about that video. I'm going to present one of the animals that was talked about in the video in a word problem. And this information is very close to accurate, and this is a real endangered animal. So I will read it out loud to you, and then we're going to use some clue words to figure out what's going on in this problem and be able to solve it together as a class. The mountain gorilla is a critically endangered species, but people are trying to save them. Many years ago, there were only 254 mountain gorillas left. Now there are 626 more. How many mountain gorillas are there in total today? So if we think that people are trying to save the mountain gorillas, why don't you talk to your neighbor and predict whether or not there are going to be more gorillas or if there are going to be less gorillas, and talk about if this is good or bad for the gorillas. And when you take some time to talk, then you can share it with the class. So I will give you 2 minutes to talk to your partner. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with your partner and with the rest of our class. By the time you leave today, you should be able to describe increases in animal populations by adding 3-digit numbers. So animal populations talks about the number of animals that live in a certain place or the number of that type of animal that lives all over the world. And if we are adding 3-digit numbers, I hope that helps you recognize whether or not increases means that animal populations are going to get bigger with more animals or smaller with fewer animals. So since we know that we are going to be adding numbers, let's go over our addition clue word poster. So can I have students volunteer to read some of these words? As you guys read, addition clue words that we can look for in our story problems are plus, total, in all together, sum, combined, and increased by. There are more, but these are a good place to start. Now that we reviewed some of the words we're going to look for, let's look back at our word problem and see if we can find some of our addition clue words. Very good. One of our addition clue words would be in total. So we want to highlight in total. So now that we know that this is an addition problem, let's find the two numbers that we need to add together. So the two numbers we have in our story problem are 254 and 626. So could I have a volunteer write these two numbers on the board in vertical form so that we may add them together? Very good. That is how you write the problem in vertical form. You make sure that each number is on top of the other number. So if you recall our steps in our addition problem using our foldable, the first one is start on the right. So that means we're going to start on this column, and our second step is to find the sum. When we find the sum by adding 4 plus 6, we get 10. So we are going to write a 0 under the 4 and 6, and if the number is 10 or more, which it is, then we carry over the 1. Our next step is to move to the left and find the sum again and repeat. So 1 plus 5 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 is not 10 or more, so we will just write our sum and add our last column. So the next step we need to do is move to the left and add our last column. 2 plus 6 is 8, and since we are all done with no more columns to the left, we just write our sum before we label our problem. So this story problem talks about mountain gorillas. So this 880 means that we have 880 mountain gorillas in the world today. So we will complete a couple more problems where you will tell me more of what to do step by step, and then we'll have a discussion about what this means for our animal populations. We'll talk about whether or not this is good for them, whether or not they are getting bigger and smaller, and the effects that you think that people are having on these populations.